Have you ever been told that 19 years of keeping a company safe was slowing things down? That happened to me on a Thursday afternoon. Stuart Langley was standing at the head of the conference table explaining why the company needed to accelerate its digital transformation. Behind him, the network monitoring screen on the wall was blinking a yellow alert: external traffic anomaly, low priority queue. He didn't notice it. I did. I'd set that alert up myself 4 years ago. I'm Neil Grover, 54 years old, director of IT security at Hartwell Systems for 19 years. Stuart was 33, Wharton MBA, had been VP of technology for less than 6 months. Before Hartwell, he'd worked at 2 venture-backed startups, neither of which had survived past Series B. Now he was sitting across from me explaining why my approach to network security was inconsistent with where the company is headed. I let him finish. He said the company was moving toward AI-driven threat detection, automated response systems. Said a vendor called ClearVector had exactly what Hartwell needed: faster, leaner, cheaper than maintaining a senior security director long-term. Then he told me my 12% raise request was denied and suggested I think about transitioning to a senior advisor role. No operational control, no real authority. A title that meant nothing. I nodded, said I appreciated the feedback, collected my folder and walked out. That yellow alert on the monitor was still blinking when I left the room. I want to be clear about what 19 years actually looked like. I came to Hartwell in 2005 when their entire security setup was 3 outdated firewalls and a password policy nobody followed. I rebuilt the infrastructure from scratch, wrote the incident response protocols, trained every department head on phishing recognition, twice, because the first group forgot within a year. When the SolarWinds fallout hit in 2020, I had Hartwell's exposure contained in 11 hours, while companies 3 times our size were still figuring out what happened. None of that made headlines it wasn't supposed to. That's the whole point. Stuart had been at the company 6 months and had already made one decision I couldn't ignore. 3 weeks before my performance review, he'd signed a contract with ClearVector without consulting me or anyone on my team. I found out through an invoice that crossed my desk by mistake. I pulled ClearVector's SLA the same afternoon, read it cover to cover, found 3 significant coverage gaps, windows where the automated system wouldn't flag certain intrusion patterns, specifically slow burn reconnaissance attacks that spread across multiple IP ranges to avoid triggering thresholds. The kind of attack that doesn't look like much until it's already inside. I wrote it up in a memo, specific, detailed, actionable, 3 pages. Sent it to Stuart with a read receipt. He replied 2 days later, 4 words. Noted, not actionable, now. 3 days after that was the conference room. The conversation about my future at the company, the senior advisor suggestion. I went back to my desk, opened my personal laptop, found an email I'd ignored for 7 months. Diane Wakefield was CISO at Fortis Cyber Group. She'd reached out the previous spring, asked if I'd ever considered making a move. At the time, I'd closed the email without replying. I'd been at Hartwell for 19 years. You don't just walk away from that. I replied to her that afternoon. She got back to me in under 90 minutes. We set up a call for the next morning. That call was different from any conversation I'd had at work in a long time. Diane didn't ask whether I could keep up with new platforms or whether I was comfortable with automation tools. She asked about the breach attempts I'd stopped, the compliance frameworks I'd built, the decisions I'd made under pressure at 2 in the morning when nobody else was awake. We need people who've actually seen things go wrong, she said, not just people who've read about it. She talked about Fortis like experience was the product, not the liability. When she got to compensation, the number was 32% higher than what I was making. But what mattered more was the rest of it: real authority to build a team, set policy, report directly to her. I didn't accept on the call. Told her I needed a few days. That night I sat at the kitchen table with Carol and laid it all out. The raised denial, the senior advisor suggestion, the ClearVector contract, the memo that came back not actionable. She listened to the whole thing without interrupting, stirred her coffee, thought about it. You built their walls, she said. They're mad you won't tear them down for him. I submitted my resignation the next morning. Joanne Ferris had handled my HR paperwork for 8 years. She looked at the letter, looked at me. Neil, what is this about? Time for a change, I said. Nothing personal. By noon, Stuart had called an emergency meeting about transition planning, asked what it would take to reconsider. Suddenly very interested in my institutional knowledge now that I was walking out the door with it. I told him I was committed to a professional handover and that Roy Delaney was the logical person to take over core responsibilities. What I didn't tell him was that I'd already signed the offer letter with Fortis. Roy Delaney was 47, solid network admin, 6 years with the company. Good instincts, careful with documentation, the kind of guy who asked the right questions during handover sessions. But he'd never designed a security framework from scratch, never managed a vendor through a crisis, never had to make a call at midnight with incomplete information and no one to escalate to. I knew what I was leaving him with. That's why I spent the 2 weeks doing the most thorough documentation I'd ever written. But there's something about institutional knowledge that doesn't transfer on paper. It lives in pattern recognition built over hundreds of incidents. It lives in knowing which vendors will actually pick up the phone at 3 a.m. and which ones will route you to a ticket system. It lives in remembering that 6 years ago, a similar traffic pattern turned out to be a former employee testing old credentials and knowing to check that specific thing first. You can't write that down, you can only earn it. Roy sat across from me every day that second week, taking notes, asking good questions, staying late to work through the monitoring systems. On the last day, he pulled me aside in the hallway. "How do you stay ahead of all of it?" he asked. "You don't stay ahead?" I told him. "You assume every system will eventually be attacked. Every user will eventually make a mistake. Every vendor will eventually disappoint you. Then you build for that instead of hoping it won't happen." He nodded. I could see the weight of it settling on him. Now here's the part that mattered most in those 2 weeks, and it had nothing to do with documentation. On day 3 of my notice period, Stuart sent me an email asking me to disable the after-hours automated alerts, said they were generating unnecessary noise, and he wanted to evaluate ClearVector's alert system exclusively going forward. Before I did anything, I replied asking him to confirm the instruction in writing. He confirmed it the same afternoon. I disabled the alerts, logged the change with a timestamp, and saved his confirmation email to my personal drive. Every single instruction Stuart gave me during those 2 weeks, I executed exactly as requested. No pushback, no workarounds. Just clean compliance with a paper trail behind every action. By the end of the second week, I had a folder of 14 documented directives, each one showing what was requested, what was done, and when. Roy didn't know about that folder, but I told him one thing before I cleaned out my desk on the last Friday. Document every instruction you receive going forward. Doesn't matter how small, timestamps, names, everything. You'll thank me later. He looked at me like I was being paranoid. I wasn't. My first few weeks at Fortis felt like remembering how to breathe. Diane ran her team like security was the foundation, not a line item. When I flagged a risk in a new client's infrastructure during my first week, nobody asked what it would cost to address it. They asked how fast we could move. Meetings started with worst-case scenarios, not quarterly targets. The work was harder in the right ways. Real problems, complex solutions, clients who'd already learned the expensive lessons about cutting corners. I was 3 weeks in when Roy called on a Saturday night. It was 10:47 p.m. I was reading on the couch when my phone lit up with his name, Neil. His voice was flat in the way people get when they're trying to stay calm and not quite managing it. We're seeing unusual traffic patterns on the external interfaces. Slow, systematic port scanning, coming from multiple IP ranges that don't seem related to each other. I sat up. How slow, spread across 11 days, small enough that ClearVector's threshold triggers didn't flag it as a pattern. I only caught it because I was cross-referencing the raw logs manually. He'd been doing the work the right way. That was the only reason he'd seen it at all. That's reconnaissance, I said, patient, distributed. Someone's mapping your perimeter without tripping the automated systems. How long has ClearVector been the primary monitor? 5 weeks, right around when I'd left. Right around when the after-hours alerts went dark. Did you escalate to Stuart? Another pause. Longer this time. I flagged it to him this afternoon. He told me to handle it internally. Said he doesn't want to alarm the board unless we have a confirmed threat, not just anomalous patterns. There it was. Roy, listen to me. What you're looking at is not nothing. This is a pre-attack pattern. I've seen it before. The distributed sourcing is specifically designed to stay under automated thresholds. Whoever this is, they're not in a hurry, which means they're good. What do I do? First, you document everything you've found tonight. Timestamps, IP ranges, log references, All of it. Then you document Stewart's response. Write it up as an internal incident note with the time and date you escalated and his exact instruction to keep it internal. You think this is going to get worse. I think you need a paper trail no matter what happens. If it turns out to be nothing, the documentation costs you an hour. If it turns out to be something, that documentation is the difference between you being the guy who raised the alarm and the guy who didn't. He was quiet for a moment. Stewart's already saying the clear vector transition has been smooth. He presented metrics to the board last week. I know, I said. Just document everything. After we hung up, I sat in the kitchen for a long time. Carol came downstairs, saw my face. Old work, she asked. Yeah. You can't fix it from here, Neil. I know. I said I'm not trying to. But I kept the call log. And I wrote up a summary of what Roy had described, timestamped, saved to my personal drive. Just in case, 2 weeks after Roy's call, the breach hit. I was at my desk at Fortis reviewing a client's infrastructure assessment when Diane knocked on my office door. She had her tablet in her hand and a look on her face I hadn't seen from her before. Neil, you need to see this. She turned the screen toward me. The headline was from a wire service, timestamped at 9:14 a.m. Hartwell Systems confirms major data breach. Customer records, financial data compromised. A federal investigation opened. I read it twice. The attack vector they described, distributed entry through an unmonitored external interface, slow lateral movement across internal segments before detonating, matched exactly what I'd outlined in my September memo. The one Stewart had marked not actionable, the specific gap I'd flagged in ClearVector's SLA coverage. Slow burn reconnaissance across multiple IP ranges, designed to stay under automated thresholds. They'd been inside the network for at least 3 weeks before anyone knew. The initial damage estimates came out over the next 48 hours. $11 million in immediate response costs, forensic firms, legal counsel, mandatory breach notifications to every affected client. The company's stock dropped 34% in 3 days. Class action filings started before the week was out. But the number that got the most attention in the press wasn't the financial damage, it was the client count. Over 40,000 business records compromised across 3 industries. Some of those clients had regulatory exposure of their own now. Roy called me that afternoon. He sounded like a man who hadn't slept. They brought in 3 forensic firms. He said, FBI is on site. Everyone wants to know how this happened. How we missed the early signs. Did you show them your incident logs from October? That's the thing, Neil. Stewart is telling the response team that the security transition was handled properly, that ClearVector was fully operational. He's saying there were no escalated warnings before the breach. I let that sit for a second. Roy, do you still have the incident note you wrote up the night you called me? The one documenting the traffic patterns and Stewart's instruction to keep it internal? Yes. I saved it to my personal drive like you told me. Good. Don't delete anything. Don't move anything. The FBI will get to you. They got to Roy within 4 days. He provided everything: the October incident note, the timestamps, the internal escalation record showing he'd flagged the anomalous traffic to Stewart and received a written instruction to handle it without board notification. Then the FBI pulled Hartwell's full email archive. Stewart's instruction to Roy was in there, word for word, timestamped, 2 weeks before the breach became public. Also in the archive, my September memo, 3 pages, specific attack vectors, specific ClearVector coverage gaps, marked not actionable by Stewart on the same day he'd sent it, and the after-hours alert disablement directive, confirmed in writing by Stewart, executed and logged by me during my notice period. The full picture wasn't complicated. A senior security director had identified the exact vulnerability. His assessment had been suppressed. His successor had identified early warning signs of the attack. That escalation had been suppressed. The automated backup alert system had been disabled on executive instruction. The breach had followed the exact path both warnings described. The FBI forwarded their findings to the Senate Subcommittee on Data Privacy and Infrastructure Security. I received a subpoena on a Tuesday morning. Senator Beverly Crane's office. They were convening a hearing on the Hartwell breach as part of a broader review of corporate security governance failures. They wanted testimony from individuals with direct knowledge of the pre-breach timeline. I spent the week before the hearing working through the facts with Fortis's legal team. There was nothing to construct. The documents said what they said. My job was just to explain what they meant to people who didn't work in security. The hearing room was marble and mahogany and camera crews. I'd testified before state regulators twice during my career, but never in a Senate chamber. Senator Crane led my portion of the questioning. Mr. Grover, how long did you serve as Director of IT Security at Hartwell Systems? 19 years, Senator. And in your final security assessment, did you identify the vulnerabilities that were exploited in this breach? Yes. The attack vector was specifically outlined in my September report as a critical risk. I recommended immediate remediation and flagged specific gaps in the vendor system that had just been contracted. She held up a printed document. This assessment was marked not actionable by executive leadership 3 days before your performance review. Is that accurate? Yes, Senator. In your professional judgment, would addressing those vulnerabilities have prevented this breach? The attack relied entirely on the coverage gaps I identified and the unmonitored window created when the after-hours alert system was disabled. Yes, remediation would have prevented it. The room was quiet enough that you could hear the camera shutters. Mr. Grover, you left Hartwell approximately 6 weeks before the breach. Was your departure related to disagreements over security priorities? I requested a 12% compensation adjustment that was denied. I was told my methodology was slowing down the company's digital transformation. I was advised to consider transitioning to a non-operational advisory role. Were you, in effect, told that 19 years of experience was a liability rather than an asset? That was the message, Senator. Yes, Roy testified after me. When Senator Crane asked him directly whether he had escalated a security warning prior to the breach and been instructed to suppress it, he said yes. He submitted the incident note and Stewart's response email as exhibits. Stewart's testimony lasted 90 minutes. His attorney intervened 3 times. He used the phrase balancing multiple business priorities 7 times. When Senator Crane asked him to explain why Roy's escalation had not reached the board, he said the matter had been under active internal review. The email said otherwise. The contrast in the room was not subtle, and the cameras caught all of it. Stewart was terminated 11 days after the hearing. The board didn't have much choice. The email record was too clean, the timeline too clear. His instruction to Roy to keep the early warning signs from the board had created personal liability that the company's legal team couldn't fully absorb on his behalf. The shareholder lawsuit named him individually. His attorney was going to be busy for a while. Hartwell brought in a new CEO within the month. Someone with an actual technology background who'd run infrastructure at a mid-size financial firm. First thing she did was commission a full security audit. Second thing she did was post 2 open positions to replace what I'd been doing alone. The combined salary for those 2 roles came out 28% higher than what they'd been paying me. Roy lasted another 6 weeks after the hearing. He'd been running on empty since the breach hit, managing the forensic teams, cooperating with the FBI, fielding calls from clients demanding answers. He handed in his resignation on a Thursday and took a position at a smaller regional firm where the scope was manageable and nobody expected one person to hold the whole thing together. Last I heard, he was doing well, sleeping again, which counts for a lot at Fortis. The work kept expanding in ways I hadn't expected. Diane gave me the CSO title 3 months in and the budget to build a team around it. We grew to 9 analysts over the following year. Our focus became companies that had already gone through a serious incident, organizations that had learned the expensive way that security isn't an optimization problem. You can streamline your way out of a breach. You can't A/B test your incident response. Hartwell's case became part of how we explained our value to new clients. Not to embarrass anyone, just because it was the clearest example I'd ever seen of what happens when you treat institutional knowledge as overhead. The memo that came back not actionable. The alerts disabled to reduce noise, the early warning suppressed to avoid alarming the board. Each decision seemed small. Together they were a roadmap to exactly what happened. 6 months after the hearing, I got an invitation from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They were forming an advisory panel on cybersecurity workforce development, specifically looking at why experienced practitioners were leaving the field or being pushed out right when organizations needed them most. They'd been tracking a pattern across industries. I wasn't the only one who'd been handed a senior advisor suggestion right before something went wrong. The panel's work was straightforward. Figure out how to keep experienced people in operational roles, instead of treating their expertise like a liability on a balance sheet. Our recommendations ended up folded into updated federal guidelines on security staffing for critical infrastructure sectors. It was the kind of work that doesn't make headlines, which felt appropriate. About 8 months after the hearing, I got a call from Hartwell's new board chairman. He'd done his homework before calling, knew my role at Fortis, knew about the NIST panel, spoke carefully and specifically about what he was asking for. He wanted me back as a consulting contractor. Full authority over security architecture. Direct board access, no management layer in between. The fee structure was generous. Everything that had been structurally impossible when I was an employee was suddenly on the table. I listened to the whole pitch. Then I thanked him and said no, not because the offer wasn't real, it was, but what Hartwell needed wasn't a consultant who could patch the architecture. They needed to rebuild from a different starting point. One where the people making decisions understood what security actually cost before a crisis forced the education. That's not something you can contract your way into. It has to come from inside. Carol asked me about the call that night. I gave her the short version. She thought about it for a second. You really don't want to go back? No, I said. The work I'm doing now actually matters. She nodded, poured her coffee. That was enough. I've thought a lot about what that Thursday afternoon in the conference room actually was. Stuart didn't just deny me a raise. He showed me exactly how the company had come to think about what I did. Prevention as overhead, experience as a cost to be optimized, institutional knowledge as something you could replace with a vendor contract and a dashboard. They found out what that assumption actually cost. It took $11 million in response fees, a 34% stock drop, a federal investigation, a Senate hearing, and a personal lawsuit against their VP to get the full accounting. But eventually the numbers were honest. I'm not bitter about it. Bitter would mean I wanted something different to have happened. I don't. I'm exactly where I want to be, doing work that gets treated like it matters, with people who understood that before the crisis forced the lesson. The floor held for 19 years because I built it right. They found out what that was worth the moment it wasn't there anymore. If you're reading this and the conference room I described sounds familiar, if you've sat across from someone half your age and heard your decades of work described as a bottleneck, here's what I know. Your value isn't in the problems people can see. It's in the ones that never happened because you were there. Document everything. Know what your work is actually worth before someone else decides for you. And don't mistake loyalty for invisibility. Because when the real test comes, they don't call the fastest system or the cheapest solution. They call the person who's seen it before and knows how to make it stop. That person is you. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise.